stellar lineup of speakers from different organizations. Each will present a unique case study or project focusing on the power of innovation in ECC. I'll invite them one by one. So first we have 4 speakers. We have Ms. Kirti Saxena, who is the Senior Program Officer at the Aga Khan Foundation. We have Dr. Nilesh Shankar, who is the Founder Director of Quest. Ms. Alina Kolka, who is the Early Years Founding Teacher at Wellington College, Pune. And Ms. Anuradha Agarwal, who is the Early Childhood Development Lead and Senior Consultant at Oxford Policy Management, India. So each speaker will have around 10 minutes. This is a 1-hour session, so at the end, we hope if we have time, we'll have 1 or 2 questions. So I would request the speakers if they can restrict to themselves to 10 minutes so that we can get a few questions towards the end as well. So first up, we have Ms. Kirti Saxena, Senior Program Officer at the Aga Khan Foundation, who will be discussing homeschool harmony, amplifying parental engagement.
Very good afternoon to the ACC. I'm Dr. Kirti, and I work with the Aga Khan Foundation as a Senior Program Officer for ECD in Education. So I know this is a session after lunch, I understand, but there's a small quiz at the end, so it will be really helpful if I find all of you a little more, focused on my slides. It's a joke, there's no quiz. So going forward, we will talk about how we have tried to sort of have a convergence between the home and the school, and that's a very challenging area first of all. So how can we harmonize this relationship, and that is what the presentation is about, and how we have amplified parental engagement, and why is it so important, especially in the early years, that we have our parents completely engaged with us. They are primary stakeholders. So it's not as long as it looks here. There was mostly pictures in my slide. But I begin with the Aga Khan Development Network and what it entails, what the structure is, what different organizations or agencies are. I'll speak about the history of ECD in education for the organization. I'll also talk about some of the key milestones that we've had so far in the organization. There are some ECD interventions that I'll focus on, of course, with the lens of parental engagement or involvement and how we strengthened it. There's a global program framework, and why I put it here is because it also specifies that we have a very strong inroads into the communities and the parents that we work with. So it's also part of our strategy, it's part of all our frameworks that we work very closely with the communities. There's a human-centered design approach that we follow in all our programs, and I'll also be sharing why it is so important that when we involve parents and caregivers and communities, we have HCD as embedded in our program. I'll also speak about something called empathy mapping. It's very interesting. We've done it with parents, and we come up with certain ideas which have told us what is it that on a daily basis stops them or doesn't allow them to engage with their children, and how that can be enhanced. I'll also speak about modes of communication. We have diversified caregiver, so we haven't ever felt that all our caregivers are just one category. There's a diversity in our caregivers, and we strongly believe and acknowledge that and work around that in our programs. We also use different modes of communication with our caregivers. So there's no one way which works with all parents. We have to be very sensitive to their needs, sensitive to their environment, to their location, and that's what helps us in also understanding what communication we can have with them, what mode. We speak about child-friendly spaces. So for us, child-friendly spaces are not just in the center or the school. We also have child-friendly panchayats. We have child-friendly villages. So when a village is child-friendly, there are very different indicators that one has to work with. There are also Khel Gali and Khel Kona. So they are play corners or play streets where we have play embedded in the landscape of the village or the city that we work with. We also talk about how caregivers have had a stimulating environment at home. A key gap area and also a challenge, we don't have caregivers looking at a learning environment that stimulates, learning at home, at least for them. For them, it's like, Anganwadi karegi or school karega. That's the major area. And normally we find that caregivers come in the picture as a PTM member or a mother's group meeting member. But here we have parents having a learning environment within their homes as well. And of course, how it feeds into the capacity building of FLWs. This is our network. We have 11 agencies and we work across a range of areas including cultural restoration. We have universities, we have work in microfinance. AKF is right there in the first line itself. We have the Alakhan Agency for Habitat, Health Services, Aviation, Financial Services. So there is a profit arm as well, and there is a non-profit social development arm as well. This is the history of ECD education. So we began in 1905 and that was the first school established in Gujarat. From there on we moved into AKF starting its first community and civil society initiative in 1978. Again we began with communities and moving on forward, I won't go through all of them, but of course there have been some key areas like for example the MOU with the government of Bihar and Telangana, which helps us to work on key programs of the government across the state. Then it's also about pilots on responsive caregiving, because we have wanted that when we began the program and the ECD education portfolio, so how do we feed our results from communities and caregivers into our program designs and what exactly we should focus on. So for us, it's not about that we bring the program to the community and parents. It's the parents and communities who tell us what they want and then we design the program around it. Some of our key milestones, I already mentioned the MOU with the Telangana government for the NLM, the SPMU that exists within the Department of Telangana. We also, with the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, we also have a partnership with them. I'll talk more about it when I come to the Palani Khazar application. There's also a partnership with ICDS Bihar. We are also members of the state ECC committee for Patna, and we also have members of the Pehel Curriculum Review Committee, which is at UP. We are currently in 5 states, so it's not a very largely spread out program, not thinly spread out, but in each of the states we are very deep into our work. These are long-standing partnerships and relationships with the community, with the government, with other state actors, and we can, number of children that we have currently reaching out to is 21 lakh children. We are present in 12,000 plus villages and wards, 715 blocks, 38,104 3As, which is the Anganwadi worker, Asha and ANM. Didis have been trained and supported by us, and we have supporting 39,872 Anganwadi centers. This is just the ECD data. There's another one for schools, but I just put ECD here. Okay, so coming to the global program framework, as I mentioned, that we work in several themes and areas, which is, for example, agriculture and food security, it is climate resilience, work and enterprise, health and nutrition, ECD and education. But if you look at strengthening of community institutions, it's a cross-cutting area for us. So this is how we are there in our strategy and frameworks. We also prioritize impact and results and learnings, and we drive innovation through our work. Okay, this is the human-centered design approach I was talking about. So all our HCD processes which happen in the community and with parents, they involve HCD, and we have HCD tools that contribute to that. So basically, whenever it looks about how we understand or how we empathize, how we synthesize or how we ideate, it's all with parents and communities put together. We also integrate our home-based observations. So for example, if you see here, you'll find that how we have to make sure that at least in this community, we should have a very safe environment for children at home. That's the first thing which comes out. Or maybe for example, where children are playing, if it's a muddy, slippery area, it's not safe for the child. Or the place where we are storing water, drinking water for the child, that utensil is not clean and not safe for the child. So this is how our observations are based. We do prototype testing, which is basically that once an idea comes through, we first test it out, pilot it out in maybe say 10 households, and then we come back and see whether the idea has been, is it feasible at all? Can it be scaled? Will it sustain? So these are the questions that we consult and discuss with the community and parents, and then only we take it forward. So for example, this is called Vazan Divas, which basically means the weighing day, जिस दिन बच्चे को का वजन देखा जाता है या weight देखा जाता है, and that's where we currently look at prototypes and decide about how we can go forward. This is the empathy map where we work with parents. So this is a persona of a father that we have mapped out. So what a father says, thinks, does and feels. That's part of our empathy map for this couple at least, this parent, this group. And if you look at a sample, and for example, if it's about a mother saying that I can't finish household work and I also have child-rearing responsibilities, then we're saying that can you share your child-rearing practices or your children's care with other family members? And we are trying to explain to the family it's a shared responsibility. And taking out me time, this was another thing we prioritized with mothers. Yesterday we heard a lot about how women and mothers are also facing postpartum depression. So we see how that can also work out once we engage the whole family. This is the mapping that we've done with caregivers. So if we see there are expecting families, this is in the ECD age group, there are neo families, there are toddler families, and then there are preschool families. And it's all depending on the age of the child, which is there in the family. ANC sessions, even the meeting platforms are different for them. And the content is completely tailored as to which family we approach in what way. So caregiver sessions are also designed based on the type of the family. This is about the age of the caregiver and how do we approach them through different ICT interventions. Or if ICT interventions are not enough and the caregiver age group is older, normally older age group parents do not depend or rely on ICT. So they won't be looking at WhatsApp messages, they won't be able to watch too many videos, download files. That will be a challenge with them. So what do we do with them? In that case, we look at child-friendly spaces. We do street theaters, we do a lot of home visits, we use public spaces for hoardings, and we do a lot of trainings. Again, this is a WhatsApp screenshot here, and how those messages are being translated, and how caregivers are engaged using those messages. What parents are doing with children at home. This is a Parla Mikazar app. Many of you must have already seen that in our the learning stations that we had. We had a complete display of this application. It's a parenting app, and with the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, completely based on the first 1,000 days between conception to 2 years. And this app is currently tested in UP and Delhi. In all our program areas, we do encourage parents to download this app wherever possible. In places where we don't find the app working, then we have other modes to reach them. But this is a one-stop shop for all information required by caregivers right from the time a woman is expecting to 2 years of age, a very critical period. Again, some messages which are based on the community, out in the open, and you can see grandfathers are engaged in reading those messages, discussing it amongst themselves. This is ECD corner at a nutrition rehabilitation center, which is a place for children from severe malnutrition or acute malnutrition. We have parenting campaigns, we have child-friendly panchayat, as I mentioned. There are learning corners, there are ECD corners and health facilities. We want even the hospitals to be very child-friendly. We want them to be parent-friendly. We do not want an environment of anxiety, and that comes over a parent or a child when they go to a hospital. This is for parents that have to reach out who are not very tech savvy and not able to engage otherwise. So basically, trainings, exchange in meetings, and of course we do always drive the idea that ECD is a family responsibility, it's a community responsibility. Again, some natural resources. institutional upgradation through Anganwadi centers, community walls, low-cost toys which were displayed yesterday. All toys are made by mothers. They are all made of cloth, of birds, animals, fruits that are very familiar to the child and the environment. And of course, it's all to reduce the screen time, the screen diet that children are slowly getting very hooked to. And if there are cases of where parents have said that we, in our free time, we give up their child, if the child is troubling us, हम तंग करता है बच्चा हमको तो हम उसको मोबाइल पकड़ा देते हैं. So what do we tell them that when you can't show them the mobile, then what is the option? What is the alternative? So this is the alternative that we have proposed. They are play corners. This slide is important because these are our community and parent-led initiatives. One is of course the Khel Kona. There's a community book kiosk in all our programs, which are run by caregivers and volunteers in the community. All books are issued. Children come and narrate stories, recite stories to each other. There's a healthy reading habit that we develop with children through this. Again, there's a grandmother who's using pictures to narrate stories to her grandchildren. This is a case where the grandmother can't read. So whenever parents can't read, we use picture books for them to talk through pictures with their children or grandchildren. This is again a community-based capacity. I'll take a minute. So this is a capacity building program. Here, while we work with supervisory cadre on mentoring, monitoring support, we're looking at how we support Anganwadi workers, Asha Didis through our cross-learning, cultural exchange. So if they say कि हमारे यहाँ वहाँ तो हो सकता है लेकिन हमारे यहाँ नहीं हो सकता, हमारे context अलग है, तो we make them go to a similar geography where they can experience how others are doing it, and then come back and try in their own areas. Some very innovative material. This is a snakes and ladder game which you must have played yesterday, some of you. Again, puzzle games, group exercises, and there are 2 case studies which have been from COVID times, where parents have used picture books to tell their children stories. And this is a mother who actually was beating her daughters. So from that there was a behavior change towards telling picture stories. It was a huge change for the mother. And this is the father. Why I have taken this story is because the father here had been discouraging other fathers from attending parent meetings. So from that stage to the time when he got other fathers to be part of the parent meeting was a huge change for us and very satisfying. So I will end here and we'll be very happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Kirti. Next, we have Dr. Nilesh Shankar from Quest. He will shed light on foundations of strength, building capacity.
So, good afternoon. I would like to open my presentation with a film. It's a short 5-minute clip, and then I'll take over from there. Can you play the film?
आणि ज्यावेळी वेगवेगळे विचारतात की मी कोणत्या शाळेत जाते तर आम्ही सांगतो की तिरशाच्या अंगणवाडीत जाते मग त्यांना एकदम आश्चर्य वाटलं तिरशाच्या अंगणवाडीत शाळेत ठेवलेली इंग्लिश स्कूलमध्ये माझी मुलगी शाळेमध्ये तिला आम्हाला शिक्षणाचं प्रमाण नव्हतं त्याच्यामुळे आम्ही पाळले
What a child can achieve and contribute as an adult depends on what she experiences during the early years of life. Adequate and appropriate stimulation during these years lays the foundation for further holistic development. In India, the Anganwadi centers fall under the Integrated Child Development Services Scheme and government cater to the needs of this age group. In Maharashtra, it is one of the largest outreach programs delivering child development services through more than 80,000 Anganwadi centers. The Anganwadi workers are responsible for implementing the 6 child development services of the ICDS scheme. Due to the complexity of the activities to be carried out by the Anganwadi workers, early childhood education takes a back seat and remains the weakest service under ICDS.
मी जेव्हा लागले 1983 मध्ये त्यावेळेस फक्त राहावं मुलांना एकत्र करायचं आणि खाऊ वाढायचं त्यांची आजी लावायची 1-2 गाणं शिकवायचे आणि त्यांना सोडून द्यायचं
is an intervention that transforms our learnings into vibrant ECE centers step by step. The effect of the intervention is evident. The physical facilities have improved with simple provisions such as umbrella, comb, handkerchief, duster, etc., which the children have learned to use. Their current awareness has increased because of the sound and the elaborate literacy program.
त्यातली पुस्तकाची माहिती झालेली आहे म्हणजे याचा अर्थ पुस्तक याच्या हातात किती पडलेली असते त्यांना खूप मजा येते मुलांना शिकवताना कसा वेळ निघून जातो तो समजत नाही एक दीड वाजता तरी मुलं खेळतच राहणार.
The parents are looking at Anganwadi as a vibrant space to learn.
अंगणवाडी उभी आहे पण असं शिक्षण नव्हतं त्या मुलांनी तिला ती निवडली आहे.
भौगोलिक अभ्यास आहे. तो आपण मुलांना शिकवलं पाहिजे की 23 वर्षात माझ्या लक्षात नाही. पण एक वीज मूर्ती पाहिजे त्यांनी दिलेला जो हवामानाचा रस्ता होता त्या हवामानाच्या रस्त्यावर 3-4 वर्षाचं मुलं पाहिजे का हवामान आलं हवा आली का मुलं म्हणतात हो काही मिनिटाचं कसं काय की म्हणत घराची पानं म्हणतात हे बघून मला खरोखर कौतुक वाटतं. खरोखर वीज मूर्ती खूप प्रगती होती मुलांना.
बहुतेक मुलं माझी इंग्लिश मीडियम गेली आखरी मुलं सगळी म्हणजे मराठी मीडियमला अंगणवाडीच आहे ते शिक्षणापेक्षा तुमचं शिक्षण चांगलं. हिला टेन्शन अंगणवाडीमध्ये जे मिळतं ते मला वाटतं इतर मुलांना कुठेच मिळत नाही सर. तेव्हा मीही माझ्या शाळेतल्या मुलांना एवढं कमी पडते मला चांगलं.
Yes, this is possible. Our Anganwadis can be converted into vibrant preschool centers. What we need is a systematic long-term program to empower the Anganwadi workers.
Yeah. You can pause the film and start the presentation. So the film must have explained what we do on the field. What I'm going to present today is that a little sort of unpopular topic among the educators. How do we really use data in understanding and making ECC better? And it has been a journey for me as well because I come from the ECC background and I never believed into this kind of data crunching and understanding everything in terms of numbers. However, when we grew and when we expanded, I realized the importance of it and then we started working on it. So, we work in these many locations and this is generally the outreach. So, more than 2,800 Anganwadis and practically then 2,800 locations plus 65,000 around children. So, if you really see this size, then it really becomes difficult to even understand that is anything really happening, is anything positive really happening at a population level, because the size surely and the geographic expanse surely is so vast that unless we really get into proper measurements, it is very difficult to claim anything and attribute to your work. And that's how we started working, developing a tool which I am going to present to you. So generally, as you have seen in the film, what we really believe in is that the most critical factor of change, bringing about a change in ECC is the teacher. And in our case, it is Anganwadi worker. So you may have great infrastructure, you may have great material, you may have great curriculum, but unless, and teacher is that single change maker which is going to bring everything together. And that's why we heavily invest in teachers. So probably, that is something which is a long way, long path to go. And that's why we have to engage with them over a 3 to 4 years of time. But still, that's something what we believe is the most sustainable way of doing it. Technology, material, curriculum, everything at best can support the teacher, not replace it. So that is what we really strongly believe, and our programs are designed in that direction. So, why did we really develop a tool? As I said, that when we started expanding, we lost the track that and how exactly we really attribute the success to our work. And that's why we started searching for the tool. We found a few tools at the international level, but as you know that these kind of tools have to be culturally sensitive. So I just can't take up a tool from say US and start implementing over here, because the cultural context of the child matters a lot. We speak different language, our scripts are different, our contexts are different, our people live different. So sort of learning from these reviews of the tools, we decided to develop one on our own, and more importantly, we have to develop it in Marathi, because this is something also purpose to be administered by the people who know Marathi, and the children also speak sometimes Marathi. The tool has these three major buckets. Now, one can really debate on that. Let me just be clear enough. This is not a tool that is to be used by teachers on day-to-day basis. Because if you really have good formative assessment, if you have good portfolios, if you have good notes taken or the observations written, it's good enough for the teacher to really go ahead. But when you talk about at a project level, it becomes almost impossible to collate insights from this scattered data. So this is mainly meant to be used as a dipstick to assess the impact of large-scale interventions or large-scale projects. That is what the purpose of the tool is. The important part is that the tool actually is to be administered at the entry of grade 1. So this is what we call as school readiness tool. Assuming that the child has really completed a good preschool program, what exactly the child should be really learning at the end of it. That's something what we try to assess. Now, let me just take you through a few items in the tools. This is a very simple thing to ask, which is the odd one out. But the scoring is done in such a way that only if the child is able to justify the answer, that why this is the odd one out, then only the child will get the score, because the item that we have designed here is mainly for the metacognition. Okay, I am able to, for a 6-year-old, to find out which one is the odd is very easy. Anybody can do it. Almost everybody will be able to do it. But justifying, articulating why this particular figure looks odd is something that requires definitely input. And that's why we want to assess that if the program is well done, children are able to do these kind of things. Let me just show you another item. Now here, if you really see clearly, two figures are odd. So if you look at the colors, then the red circle will be odd, and if you look at the shape, then it is triangle is the odd. And is there able to child able to take two different perspectives and then they tell you that why this particular figure is the odd or not. So these are the kind of items that we have included into here, because we wanted a tool which is fairly easy to administer, yet gives you some meaningful insights from the project. So let me just tell you what exactly we have used this tool at a very large scale. What kind of insights could we really gather? Now there is a counting task and then there is a measurement task. If you really see, counting up to 20 is something almost 74% could do, and the measurement was a very simple task, which was something like this: that there was a rope kept over there, and the child was supposed to measure it using ice cream sticks. And that result, if you really see over here, it is just 12%. Now it's very puzzling that children are able to count up to 20, but why not measure a simple rope which is of just 4 sticks of length? So when we really went into deep inside, we just realized that this is the kind of task which was quite a new thing for the unemployed workers. So they just did not get this input. So when they just had a word with them, they said, "Bataya to tha, bhul gaye." So simply by correcting that, we would really improve the results. So when we talk about the large-scale interventions, these kind of numbers give you some insight which needs to be delivered to that input and then analyzed further. So this is another task that is there. This is the data that children have collected, and if you will read the question, you will come to know that what does it mean that there is no box colored on the bus. What would it exactly mean? That is the kind of question that we ask. Or another question in the same task is that, see, can you maybe tell that is this a very busy road? Can you call this as a busy road? Or is it in the city, or is it in this thing? So these kind of questions are asked taking into account the data. I'm just showing you some samples, and I would like to take you to the end, something like this, who is the taller one. Yeah. So if you read the entire sentence, you will see that the child has to hold quite a lot of information in his head orally and then respond to this. So these are the kind of abilities that we are trying to really test through this testing. Yeah. Now if you really see over here, this is, so the way we use it is that we administer this tool to grade to the children who are entering into grade 1 from the Anganwadi before we start the intervention. And then year on year we keep on tracking the same, the different cohorts that come, and we expect that the average school readiness level, so this tool creates at the end of the day score, so that average school readiness levels really improve over a period of time. And if they are improving in a certain manner, we can clearly be assured that the interventions are working. If they are not improved, then something needs to be done, need to go and really analyze the things. So that's the way tool works. This is another thing that we really tried out doing it, that wherever we felt that this is the intervention that has worked intuitively, that these are the Anganwadis which are best performing Anganwadis, we selected 50 of them and ran a tool test over there. Similarly, what we did was that we went to the cities and ran tests to the schools which are considered to be good schools and wanted to compare what happens. So the blue bar is showing average school readiness of our Anganwadis, 50 Anganwadis, versus the green bars are showing you the city schools. Because we also wanted to see that how much can we really expect from such a large system, which is such a resource-starved system. And if you really see, there is not much difference between the average school readiness levels of the children over there. To end my presentation, I would like to say one thing, that if we really want to make quality education accessible to every child, it is our public system is the only solution. No private player, no matter what kind of resources we will put on the table, we will never be able to reach to the last mile. And that's why strengthening the public system, having faith in the public system, is something what we really believe is of paramount importance if we want to make early childhood education accessible to the last mile. And time is almost over. Thank you.
Thank you, Nilesh. I hope that's it. So next we have Ms. Arina Kurka, who is the early years founding teacher at Barrington College, Pune, and she will present on the curiosity approach to learning.
Hi everyone. So I'll try and be quick. I have lots of pictures. In line with the new progress in early research and innovation, as part of the foundation team for early years in Pune, for the new Wellington College, we did lots of research into what is the most beneficial thing for children's holistic development, for their well-being, for their involvement, therefore for their learning. And we decided on the curiosity approach as a pedagogy, and that's the base of our whole early years team. It was funded quite recently, 2017, by 2 English teachers, nursery teachers and nursery owners, who have their own nurseries, and they decided to get together and create an accreditation for this new approach that has at its core the desire to create a generation of thinkers, doers, and investigators. So before we move forward, I would like you to look on your tables and pick the 1 or 2 objects that sit on top of the paper. And just shout out, what are they? What's that? It's a stick, okay? Now, swash it a bit in the air, poke someone with it, tap the table a few times. Now, what is that? Okay, so you're making sound. What can it be then? If you can make sound with it. Drumsticks, fabulous. What else can it be? A sword, what else can it be? If you write in the sand with it, what can it be? Okay, so, suddenly. Is that actually a stick? Turn the paper over now. That is not a stick.
So that's what we have the power when we work with children. Will it surprise you to see that I have a list with over 100 things that you can do or play with a stick. So you give that to a child and you say, it's a stick, that can only be a stick. So we have the power to absolutely develop those children's imagination, creativity, and that's what the curiosity approach does. The first principle is curiosity. So everything we do, we want to encourage children to bring to the surface that innate desire to discover, to connect, to experiment. So our environments and our resources build and provide those opportunities. So every part of our nursery, inside, outside, every little corner, the communal areas, the learning village, that's its purpose, to encourage children's curiosity, to build that confidence to go and see, oh, what's that? Was it there yesterday? Oh, I don't know, let me have a look. What can it do? The second one is what we discussed a lot today, and what I think is one of the most important tool or weapon, if you want, in early years, and it's educators. So how many times people work in early years, they work in teaching for years and years, and it wears you down. You get disappointed, you get disheartened, you lose track why most of us went into early years, into teaching. So we want to reignite children's passion for early childhood through research, to farm things, to engage in things, to reducing the paperwork, the need to sit down and plan. Be there with the children. Look at that. We have a teacher assistant, we have an early years assistant, which most schools use as cleaners. Yes, part of their duties is to keep the environment clean and say, but also children don't make a difference between an early years assistant and a teacher. They connect with the person, they learn from all of us. So the previous one, for example, that's our nurse. Rupali, who comes out with us, she's teaching them how to make roti in the math teacher. I mean, you cannot put a value on that learning that's happening there. The next one, transforming the environment. So one of the principles that's really important in the curiosity approach is to create an environment where children feel at home. They feel relaxed, they feel that they can go in the corner if they want, they can sit down, they can play an instrument, they can build with something. And that again, the classrooms are all neutral colors, calm colors, and then the actual impact of the colorful thing comes from the children. The resources, the things they do, brings the color into the environment. So this is, for example, our learning village. So that is as valuable as the classroom itself. So we have different areas where you can take a couple of children out, you can take a class out, you can have those learning hands-on investigation activities within the hallways of our school. You're not tied up to your classroom. And like, for example, that's a pre-nursery classroom. So my classroom, 2-year-olds, we have a beautiful den, camping area, cooking, camping, all that. The one in the middle is a little one. So those are 5-year-olds, and it still keeps the environment as inviting and interesting. Yes, they need a bit more tables, they need more, challenging probably, more challenging provision. There is more focus on phonics and writing, so they have a different setup, but it's still following the same principles. But this is, for example, outdoors, so absolutely free. Oh, so let's keep on, I think. Oh, there's a resource one that's missing. So this is based on authentic and natural resources, because in order to get the children to feel at home, to experiment, the environment and the resources have to reflect their own experiences. And giving children something that's new, that they can't relate to, that they don't know what it is, most of the times it just doesn't mean anything. But creating environments, so for example, we have all the China tea sets, we have natural herbs, spices, they make their own tea, they see that process, they need to role play that process to make those connections in their brain. Outside, crates, bamboo ladders, everything that some they know, some we introduce slowly. Their creativity is at maximum level, their well-being, their engagement, it's absolutely fabulous, and that's where the learning happens in that environment. Rhythms and rituals, we have to make sure that throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout busy interactions and activities, children actually have time to sit back, to relax, to process what they see, and we with them. Those are my children, we do that every day, after we have a busy session, after the morning outside, in the afternoon after they wake up, we always take the time to just sit and relax. Some of them like to lie down, listen to music, we do mindfulness meditation, and I love that last bit, mindful instead of mindless. And so basically to sort of summarize everything, is beautiful play spaces for children, open-ended, natural and recycled materials, provocations and invitations to learning. Those are really planned by us based on what children like, what they're interested in, what their abilities lie. Whole setting approach is not one classroom, one corner. We as a team look at our strengths, clear vision for development, we share our achievements, and we're part of the bigger Curiosity Approach group of settings and practitioners who are going towards accreditation as well. And yeah, we belong to a growing community of excellence. So we have high expectations for us and for our children. And the last, I will leave you with the founding theories. Some of them will be familiar, some of them are they're not new, but they're not as well known. But they all have elements that we use in our practice that can be found in the Curiosity Approach sort of ethos, principles, and pedagogy. Thank you.
Thank you, Adina. Next, we have Ms. Anuradha Agarwal, who is the Early Childhood Development Lead and Senior Consultant of Oxford Policy Management India. She will talk about learnings from Thrive, a multi-country evaluation project.
Good afternoon, everyone. I know I'm the last session of the last day, but on a personal note, I'm very excited to be here because I'm an alumnus of the Dhirubhai Ambani International School. And coming back after so many years, a lot of the teachers who taught me are in this room. And I have to say that my inspiration for working in the education sector started by the things that I was exposed to when I was here. So, although we've talked a lot about what happens when you're younger, I think when you're older, you really appreciate how far it helps you come. So I just wanted to share that. So today I'm going to be talking a bit about the work that we do at Oxford Policy Management, and in particular, one of our programs. It's a large-scale research early childhood development program called Thrive. Where we're generating evidence to scale ECD programs in lower and middle income countries. So I think we focus a lot about what's happening inside the classrooms in the Anganwadis. We have a lot of sort of practitioners here, but this is sort of zooming out a little bit and looking at the policy level, and that's the sort of work we've been doing. Just to very quickly tell you about Oxford Policy Management, we're a global development consulting firm, and we work with governments, with philanthropies, with multilateral organizations to provide analytical and policy and programmatic support in a lot of developing countries around the world. OPM was founded about 40 years ago within the University of Oxford, and we work in several different development domains. We work on policy, research, monitoring, evaluation, and learning. And we've got 13 country regional offices, including a big presence in India. Education is one of our main focus areas, and we have 5 subspecialties within that, including early childhood development. Just to give you a little bit about our approach to ECD at OPM, we cover the 0 to 8 age group, and a lot like many other organizations we've heard from in the last few days, we take this cross-sectoral approach to ECD. because we have specialty within the organization and education and health and nutrition and wash and other domains. So we sort of take that holistic view. We work in monitoring, evaluation and learning, research and strategy. We've done large-scale research programs like the one I'm going to talk about, results-based financing projects, impact evaluations, and we have learning partnerships as well in several different sort of countries around the world. So I just want to introduce the key research program that I'm going to be talking about today. It's called Thrive. It's our flagship ECD project within the company. Thrive is a multi-country research program that aims to generate evidence on how you take ECD projects to scale. So a lot of organizations have developed interesting early childhood development models, but the research tells us that when you implement them at a smaller scale, they show effects. But the minute you sort of take it to scale, those effects are diminished. And I think this is common not just for ECD, but other parts of the education system and other sectors as well. And so the research program's aim is really sort of to try and contribute to the body of evidence about how you take those smaller programs and how do you sort of encourage that scale up. So we're implementing this in 5 different countries, in Bangladesh, Ghana, Kiribati, Sierra Leone, and in Tanzania. While OPM is a consortium lead, we've got a few global partners like the Institute of Physical Studies, Yale University, Stockholm University, and this is supported by FCDO. In the country, we've got sort of country research organizations who we've got a partnership with. For example, in Bangladesh, we work with ICDDRB, which generates a lot of evidence on early childhood development. So because ECD is so broad, so cross-sectoral, spans a lot of years of a child's life, we sort of have a framework that we use to navigate and divide all our different research projects. So I think the first and foremost point is that we're very interested in what each of those countries' national agendas are. Each of the countries I mentioned, they're very different in terms of where they've progressed with that ECD policy. And so we're very interested to know what has that country set for itself in terms of its ECD goals. And we align that with other sort of well-known international ECD frameworks like the Nurturing Care Framework that was developed by WHO and other organizations, and sort of see what are the best ways to encourage development of a child. And our research projects sort of fall into 3 different categories. So one theme is what works. What are some examples of good ECD pilots that are showing promise? And we've heard a lot of interesting models in the last 2 days, even in this room. Then we try and see some projects and how they scale up. What are sort of bottlenecks that you see when you take that to scale, say within a government system. And we also focus on equity and inclusion. We have projects in sort of marginalized communities. We have them in refugee communities as well. We focus on gender, so some of those pockets are also sort of captured. And at the moment there's sort of 15 research programs that are running across these 5 different countries. So I can't talk to you about 15 programs, but I'm going to tell you about 2. Just to say that it's very early in the sort of the development of this research project. It's just been on for a year, so we don't have results to share yet. But what I thought would be interesting is if we share sort of the approach and the motivation behind doing this piece of work. So I'm going to share one example from Bangladesh on a project called Saving Bangladeshi Babies' Brains, or SB3. Just for a bit of context, Bangladesh has an integrated ECCD policy that it launched in 2013. And the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare included ECD in its operational plans in 2023. And so ICDRB, our local research organization that's leading this piece of work, in collaboration with the Ministry of Health, launched this program called SB3. And the idea really was to integrate ECD within the government health sector in community health clinics, because there was quite a far-reaching infrastructure in rural areas, so they wanted to utilize an existing structure to sort of encourage child development. And they did it in 600 community clinics with 10,000 children in about 4 districts of Bangladesh. Using the Reach Up and Learn curriculum, which I've heard a lot of organizations here have also adapted, in their own context. They focused on children 6 to 24 months with certain sort of malnutrition criteria. And the program on a smaller scale had large impacts on cognitive development and language and motor development. But when it was taken to scale and sort of assessed about whether those impacts remain or not, it showed that it didn't, as much as it did when the scale was smaller. And I think a lot of us in the room have experience of that as well. And so under Thrive, what we're trying to investigate is what happens when you take such a project to scale. What are the bottlenecks? Which parts of the system get blocked, which need to be sort of worked on? And so the research is really going to be focusing on how can you improve or tweak that model further, iterate what's been done on a smaller scale so that it's ready to be implemented within the government system. Another example I wanted to share is from Tanzania, a project called Kizazi Kijacho. It's loosely translated as the next generation. This is an impact evaluation of parenting intervention and unconditional cash transfer program. So just for a bit of context, about half the children in Tanzania between 2 to 5 are developmentally off track, similar to a lot of developing countries we're familiar with. And Tanzania also launched a multi-sectoral ECD program in 2021. So there seems to be a lot of political commitment and interest in working in the area of ECD. But there's some key questions that I think they were keen on understanding the answer to. If you're interested in working on early childhood development and you have a wide age group and several subdomains to work on, how do you go about practically deciding which program comes first, how to bundle programs together, what order you should have packages in? So that's sort of the gap we're trying to answer with this piece of research and hopefully provide some answers to a government system. And so there was a small-scale home visit and community group-based parenting approaches by community healthcare workers that had shown promise in Tanzania. And so the project was trying to find scalable ways to mentor community health workers. And this is an existing research project that was ongoing, and so on with Thrive may aim to leverage sort of the research that was done, this randomized controlled trial of Kizazi Kijacho, and to sort of compare if you give an intervention on parenting delivered by health workers, and if you have an unconditional cash transfer program, does that benefit a family more? Or is it that if you give one in isolation that will benefit more? Those are the types of questions this research is trying to answer and to try. Just to give a bit of context in terms of a parenting program, this particular research was using Care for Development by UNICEF and WHO, their package, and the Reach Up Parenting program. And in terms of an unconditional cash transfer, it was a mobile money transfer about between $15 to $50. And then they measured cognitive, speech, etc., different types of outcomes for child development. So the research is still ongoing, we're waiting for the results, but we're hoping that it gives the government a bit of insight about how they can go about ordering the different programs that have already shown promise when they've been at a smaller scale. So like I said before, it's been a short while that we've launched this piece of work. The results will be coming soon from multiple countries, and we'll hope to begin to build a body of evidence about what happens when you take ECD programs to scale, what are the sort of bottlenecks that we can be addressing. So I'm hoping to follow some of our work to learn more about it when it comes out. Thank you so much.